regarding Heckoween. So I think it would be fantastic if, instead of having Heckoween at the church, what they did was families of these kids dressed up as shepherds and angels and seraphim. If they went out trick-or-treating like everybody else, all dressed up with their little families and whatnot, make sure the parents are dressed up. This is all in preparation for when the church has to go underground. When you start drawing a half of a fish with your stick by the way, in the ground, and the other person draws the other half of the fish, and that's how you know that you're a Christian. Which I don't recommend as being the password in the upcoming age. Oh, excuse me. That felt good. But I do believe it is nigh upon us. And so then, at each street, two families get together and their children change costumes for the next street. So, but the parents don't, because then that mixes up the reports. Okay, oh, these people came and did this at my door, because this is the plan. Instead of having Heckoween and blazingly identifying yourselves as people that need to die, that when the children come up to the door, they say no to the candy being offered and hand back like a pamphlet of 1 Peter. Just the one little book. Or 1 John. Just that one little book. The teeny, or Jude. That's just like one page. And then go away. So they don't take the candy, but they hand back tracts, in essence. But tracts of scripture, of actual Bible portions. And maybe for like one whole block, or for your big giant neighborhood, you give away like one chapter out of... Never mind, but that's going further on. So I'm thinking, you know, about how to disguise a gathering of people that don't want to die, or be imprisoned, or punished, or tortured, or burned at the stake, you know. And how are they going to keep the word safe and precious as well? How would you do it? How would you invent how to live an underground existence above ground? Would you follow TV guidelines? Would you be like, oh, wow, it's on TV, that's a good idea, I'll follow that? Well, duh, and you're just falling into the same trap as anybody else that ever gets trapped. So, no, they're going to know that story. They wrote it. So I think that's a matter for prayer and spiritual consideration. Where would you hide? And you'd have to stay on with your life. Oh, so one of the other things I thought about was when the New World Order takes over. And I think the best place, because you can't, like, have a 3-year-old talking about Jesus. I mean, unless you keep your child near you all the time, which I would personally recommend. But you can't have your 7-year-old child be talking about Jesus either. Right? Because that's just going to get you all killed. So I say, you give them a firm Jewish background. And then you explain to them the Messiah when they're old enough to keep their mouth shut. Maybe 12, they can start keeping their mouth shut. You know, maybe it puts a graver responsibility on them at 12 to keep their mouth shut. And so send them to Jewish school. Right? What are they going to get? They're going to get a firm background in the Old Testament and some of the best education around. There's more to that. Be interesting if you quit witnessing to your children about the glories of Christ all the time. You know, like Sunday school would become advanced learning school, creation school. Let's learn about creation, you know, anti-indoctrination school, as opposed to, let's just push on you, Jesus, 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 Jesus all the time, and not give them anything. I mean, sure, it's useful, but how many Christians do you know that went to Sunday school immediately go out and backslide, you know? Maybe they don't even wait until they get to college. So why create the conditions for backsliding when you can raise up children who will then turn into mature Christians quickly, at a faster pace than their fellows? Plus, Jews get all the good jobs. So the Jewish education, you know, you're going to be putting yourself in a position of, or where authority is practiced. As long as you keep your mouth shut about your faith. Let people come to you and say, something is different about you. What is it? And then you know they're called. Right? You're like, oh, well, how do we know who's elect? Well, they'll come to you. Yeah, no, they will come to you. When they see that you don't indulge in the same dissipations. Right? Because it's different. I'm not saying be a teetotaler. I will never ever say be a teetotaler. I will never say be a prohibitionist. I am totally not understanding how that fits in with the law of liberty, you know, which apparently is a law, and we're not supposed to abuse it. Donk. And I say this one last thing here. I don't even know how many minutes I'm at. 7, good. Or 8. Should go back to serving wine at church for communion. If you are a recovering alcoholic and you can't handle a thimbleful full of wine whenever there's communion, then you need to question your faith in God. Maybe God will turn that to blood in your mouth and you won't ever want to do that again, because, you know, you're doing this as an indication that you are a repentant sinner, you know, and you're trying to be holy. You're like, Knots, I sinned again. Jesus Christ, why they, Knots, oh God, I'm so sorry, you know. And you're like, well, I better quit saying that. And then you become a Heckoweener, you know, and you're like, what is it, gee whiz, golly gee whiz, Jesus Christ, golly gee whiz, I wonder what that is. Gee whiz. And I'm like, no, at least I didn't say Jesus. And, you know, just be glad you're not saying Yeshua, you know, or if that comes out of your mouth and you're saying with power and authority over a situation. I'm not necessarily a namer, by the way, but I do believe there is power in the name and it should not be abused. So that's my position. And it's going to make you want to not sin. So I don't see why they switched over to grape juice. I think the most ridiculous excuses come from that. Because it says, and their young men get drunk on new wine. Okay, now obviously that's also a parallel to like the emergent church or something on that order. But it's also indicating that they're not getting drunk on grape juice. So, That being said, may God nod toward thee. Be well.